And Judah, Benjamin, and historians think probably a lot of the tribe of Simeon, because it was in the south there, but primarily the tribe of Judah becomes a southern kingdom, and that southern kingdom is known as Judah. Now, and this is where I think it gets confusing, because as you read through the history of Israel at this point in time, it's going to be switching back and forth and back and forth. You read the book of Kings, and it's 1 minute it's talking about so-and-so became the king of Israel, and the next minute it's talking about so-and-so is the king of Judah, and then you'll read a prophet, and it'll say this prophet was sent to this king of Israel, and another prophet he sent to this king of Judah. And at this point in time, I think this is where a lot of people get confused in the Old Testament. And it begins to look a little bit like this then. All of the rest, outside of this history, the rest of the Old Testament now really hangs on this narrative spine of the history of the kingdom. You have, during the time of David and his son Solomon, you have Old Testament poetry being written, and most of it, let me say that, Psalms. Most of the Psalms are written during this period of time. We tend to think of David as the author of all of the Psalms. He really is only specifically identified as the author of about 70 of the 150 Psalms. But it's during this period of time, primarily the United Kingdom, where Psalms, Proverbs, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Job could possibly have been written now, although some scholars think it could have been the earliest book, maybe even written before Genesis. But if you look at your Bible, the way that it's structured is you get these 5 books together, which are called the poetic books, but chronologically they fit back under this history of the kingdom. 14 of the 17 prophets fit back under this period of the divided kingdom. When we get to the final scene, which is what we're calling the return to Israel, there's 3 of those 17 prophets that belong to that final period. But again, all of this kind of hanging on the spine. The divided kingdom, the northern kingdom of Israel, has 19 kings in its history, and every one of them was bad. And when you read the history of the kings, you will read after every king of Israel, the phrase will be said that, so-and-so did evil in the eyes of the Lord. There's not one time in any of these 19 kings that God is pleased with what they've done. Partially because when Jeroboam establishes this northern kingdom, he's a pretty smart cookie. And he knows that people's hearts are going to be drawn to where they worship. And if the temple is in Judah, he's always going to have a problem with people from the northern kingdom being drawn to that southern kingdom. And so what he does is he sets up his own temples. And he builds a temple in Bethel on the southern kind of edge of the northern kingdom. And he builds another one in Dan in the northern part of the kingdom of Israel. He sets up his own temple, his own priesthood, and his own form of worship. And the result is that the northern kingdom spends its entire history living in idolatry and apart from the worship of God that's taking place down at the temple. So 19 kings, all bad. Southern kingdom has 20 kings, and of the 20, 15 do that which is evil in the eyes of the Lord. But there are 5 of those 20 kings that as you read about them, you'll see that God's comment is that they did that which was pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. And the result is that you're going to see that the northern kingdom has a shorter history than the southern kingdom, because whenever one of those good kings kind of pulled people back to worship of Yahweh, it was as if they were given more time. And so the prophets, they respond to the prophets, 5 of these kings. The prophets, I should say a word about, by the way, and this is a little key on how you figure out both the kings and the prophets. The prophets, by the way, had a pretty simple message. The message of the prophets basically was this: shape up or ship out. They were sent to confront the kings of Israel when the nation had gotten off track with God. And so they would warn them, and they would warn them that if they didn't, that God was going to judge the nation, whether it was Israel or Judah. The second part of the message, though, amazingly, was a message of hope. Because oftentimes, along with this warning to the nation, you'll find embedded in the prophets this message about Act 2 that's coming, almost a preview of coming attractions, the message of the coming Messiah, and they're going to need it because they're going to reach a point, both in the north and the south, where things become so hopeless that the nation is basically destroyed. Well, you can understand the kings and the prophets this way. This is fill in the blank. You'll go through reading 1st and 2nd Kings particularly, and over you'll see a phrase that says something like, in the X year of so-and-so, king of either Judah or Israel. And what it's going to do, it's going to position this incoming king in relationship to the king of the other kingdom. So that if it's a king of Judah, what it will say is, it'll say something like, in the 10th year of Asa, king of Israel, then so-and-so became king in Judah. And again, this is where it gets confusing because it's going back and forth and back and forth. Now, it sort of takes place chronologically, makes it even more confusing, so that if you have a king that reigns for like 50 years, you might have 3 or 4 kings from the other kingdom that come to power during that time, and the book of Kings will deal with them one by one until a king dies and a new king comes in. So this is sort of a formula that's used to identify the specific time when a king comes to power. And then secondly, it'll tell you exactly. He reigned in either Judah or Israel for X number of years, and then you'll get this evaluation that he did either good or evil in the eyes of the Lord. So this is, once you understand this little formula, it basically is telling you the entire disposition, length of time of that king. And again, in the short period of the book of 1st and 2nd Kings, you're going to track through over 400 years of history here. So again, it's almost as if you think of it in film terms, this would be like a montage where it's just, real quickly giving you quick glimpses of things that might be taking, 20, 30, 40 years, and you're getting it in a verse or two. Now, interwoven through there will be periods of time where there'll be a larger story that's told about one of these kings, but generally speaking, this stuff is moving rapidly. Now, understand then that the prophets, when you get to the prophets, all of these prophets are going to come back underneath chronologically the time period of the kings, and generally, it's not always true, but one of the things that can help you put this together is that you'll also see that many of the prophets are introduced with this little formula that says, the word of the Lord that came to, and then it'll name the prophet, Hosea, or Amos, or Isaiah. And then it'll say, during the reign, and if it's a prophet that prophesied during the reign of simply one king, it'll name that king, but oftentimes these prophets were ministering and prophesying during the reign of a number of kings, and so it'll say, again, during the reign or reigns of boom, 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 and it'll name the king or the kings of, and it'll tell you Judah or Israel. So instantly when you look at that, and again, the prophets are not structured chronologically in your Bible.